medic.
Oh, that's nice. You start the
Perfect way
show
to
with
go
this.
live.
That's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
nice.
Did I start the? That's perfect.
Yeah,
We're
the
talking
jet-
about corrections for writing. None
Perfect
of that
timing.
stuff, you silly humans out there.
getting deboosted on YouTube
Right.
right out of the gate.
We're getting on a list right away.
All right. Welcome to this episode of Cerberus of the Improv. I am Payman Ascari. I'm joined by my fellow co-hosts. First, Mr. Timothy Knight. How's it going?
Oh, I'm learning JavaScript.
Not going well.
You're learning. You
Learning
didn't know it
is
all.
a
You didn't know it already.
subjective experience. My lived experience is less than optimal. Yes. Trying to teach an old dog new tricks.
It could be worse. At least you're not learning Python.
It could be. I have nothing to say.
A little programmer joke. Not funny
Little
anyway.
Programmer joke. Worse than a dad joke. Could be playing with your Python.
One of these days we're going to get arrested.
We are. Yeah. But unlike some people, they will refuse us bail.
We'll get to that.
Maybe at least
We'll
we'll
get
be
to
in
that.
the same. We'll be in the same cell, and we'll be able to do Cerberus at the Improv.
I don't
live.
think they're going to put us in the same cell, man. They're going to put me in a tank and threaten me with pictures of whales.
And what about you, Mr. Meloche? How's tomato canning going for you?
We're practically finished and dead.
Did you say
But-
dead?
Well, dead after transforming 70 kilogram of tomato. I think we're
Wow.
quite dead.
That's
Quite
a
dead.
lot.
That's a lot.
That's
a lot.
one
I had a
big
night-
tomato.
I had the nightmare yesterday. I was in a canning pot, glass pot. I was a big tomato, and Carney was trying to inject something in the. It's like mRNA something, and I woke up. Oh, I was sweating in the eye. She said, "What? What
That sounds like a Quentin Tarantino script,
I'm a writer, Tim.
right?
What can I say?
Mark Carney's
I'm
living.
very glad to be back with you both this week.
Yeah, you were at a conference, which we'll get to. I think that's topic number 2.
Yep.
We were going to start. I'm always bad with this stuff. I never pay attention. We were going to start with something about austerity. So Mark Carney came out and he said we're going to need austerity, and then immediately he said, "Oh, but also we're going to have to do some investment and stimulus."
Right.
And you want to take a historical perspective, Tim. So why don't I just throw this over to you?
Because I got all excited about him intentionally using the word austerity. He's mimicking the British tone, right? It's because reminding us that we're colonized, that we're subject to the crown. So after these first and second both world wars, Britain continued their austerity budget, where austerity is basically everybody's on rations. It's a command economy, right? That's the word, right? So it's a command economy, and Canada was subject to the same thing at that time. And the word austerity is used because it's the austere, stiff upper lip, right? We're going to buckle down, and it's going to be difficult, but we're going to make it through because greater good and for the king, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So everybody, like good citizens, buckles down, believing that the war is finished now. We're just coming out. We need to just get everything turned around, get the economy back, and build back better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth of the matter is, they were funding the White Russian army in an attempt to overthrow Lenin. And so, for me, the moment Carney uses the word austerity, I'm reminded of the parallel between Britain and the other allies intentionally rationing their citizens to fund the White Russian army to try to overthrow Lenin. And here we are for the last, since 2014, fighting the Russians with austerity, and Canada's put like $20 billion into the Ukrainian black hole. And now Carney's using the word austerity. It's the same nonsense. It's exactly the same nonsense. So to me, a Canadian who wants to know the way forward, read some frickin' history. right? So, and then the thing is, the government is so comfortable running roughshod over to the citizens that they literally say the quiet parts out loud, and we still don't get it. And that's what drives me bonkers. Is you want to learn how to overthrow, how to overcome this problem? Read history.
Before going to Andre, I just want a big thank you to Gary for sharing the stream. Anybody watching, if you share the stream, that'd be much appreciated. Go ahead, Andre.
Well, I do agree with Tim, and digging a little bit through the Russian history, the White Guard. The White Guard was the guard of the Tsar. So when you look at what was happening, they were fueling or financing the White Guard in Ukraine, in South Ukraine. There's a very great novel from Mikhail Bulgakov, The White Guard, and it is civil war. But what is fascinating, you talk about austerity, I think payment before backstage we were talking about, it seems like he's talking about investing, but also using the word austerity. So I said, first of all, it's an oxymoron. It's also a schizophrenic behavior, because if you think that they overthrew the Tsar with the financing of Jacob Schiff, who financed Trotsky and Lenin putsch, and after that they wanted to finance the White Guard, and the White Guard is supposed to be the guard of the Tsar. So they play on both sides. They try to they fired, they thrown out the Tsar out of power, and after that they undermine the politics of Lenin, what Tim was mentioning. So they were trying to, I think they're doing the same thing now. They are trying to create interior conflict in society to be able to have power grab. I think about BlackRock or Vanguard, who are taking a lot of land in Ukraine, and they want to take the land in the east part of Ukraine, Kharkov, the Donbass region, where you have a lot of minerals. In the west part of Ukraine, it's more agriculture land. So now what I see is that, like Tim mentioned, financing the White Guard in 1918 was to destabilize the society, the Russian Empire, to destabilize it and to split it in small portion. This is a very, very old. This is a very old project, dismantling Russia, because Russia is the most biggest country geographically speaking, and the country that has the most natural resource. I don't know if you've seen last week, Russia found oil. How do you call this in English? A oil field,
Reserves,
a whole reserve in Arctica. Yes,
Arctic.
and they would become the first oil producer on the planet, because the oil field is evaluated at about 511 billion barrels of oil over Venezuela, over Iran. So when you look at Russia as a big country, 1918 they overthrew the Tsar. Then they could not control Lenin. They could not control the Bolsheviks. So they were financing the White Guard to be able. They created the beast. And we can take a modern example with Afghanistan. In Afghanistan and the Taliban, how they fueled the Taliban in 1979 against Soviet Union. And when the Soviet Union had to go out from Afghanistan, they could not control the Taliban. You have always the same modus operandi, in my opinion.
And it can be said that the West directly and or indirectly influenced the Bolsheviks, because the leaders of the Bolshevik were found spending time in Paris and in Vienna and London and New York, and they were confabbing together to build this and creating a groundswell of local communist fervor wherever they landed their feet as well. Look what Trotsky did in Mexico, and then of course in He was in New York prior to that. So the West permitted the meetings between these movers and shakers who eventually formed the Bolshevik, right? Or who the leaders of the revolt that took the moniker Bolshevik, because Bolshevik was a philosophy more than an actual entity, so to speak.
The word Bolshoi, the Bolshoi theater, the word Bolshevik in Russian means great, means big, means magnitude. And when you look at the Bolshevik, and there's a phrase, I don't know, I don't remember who wrote this phrase, but they said it is Leon Bernstein that financed the revolution through Jacob Schiff, and it's Trotsky who did it. So why I say schizophrenic behavior. You have the money to supposed to finance or support a revolution, but it's not for the people. It's for the greater good. It's for the party. And then we know what happened for 70, 75 years in Soviet Union. The parties kept growing and growing and growing with bureaucracy up to a point where Anna Arendt talks about totalitarianism for a short period of time. Because after, when Stalin died, it started to open. And then to modern time with Khrushchev and what we know now. But I think Tim is right.
Sorry.
They're doing the same thing now.
I don't want to lose. You guys are great minds when it comes to history, but just to bring it back for average Canadians, when Mark Carney says austerity, what the hell's going on? Like, is that
the English word is rations?
Is that at the request of the
Rations.
United Kingdom, and Canadians are going to be suffering for the benefit of England?
Yes, because because the king came and reminded us that we're subjects.
We're subject. And I think Tim's mentioned something. You will talk about it later, payment with the Ministry of War in United States. They are preparing war. Why they're increasing the income or the wages of soldier in the Canadian Army? Why they are depriving people of sovereignty, housing crisis, inflation? Because one day, and let's say CBDC, one day they will say, and we can talk about the digital ID, one day they will say, you have to do your war effort. We are at war. So that the message behind what I always say, what is the subtext? The
And they will
subtext of
withhold 20% of your CBDC.
Yes. And the subtext is we will impose austerity, but at the same time, we will develop or invest our military complex to face the big bad bear that will invade the planet. They have this mentality of conquest all the time. The only thing they do is they live to hate people. Great Britain, they live to hate people. They don't want. They hate their subject. We can talk about the monarchy, but the monarchy, if he hates his subject, he will become a tyrant. So for the average Canadian, austerity means you will have a coupon. You will, Great Depression. That was 97 years ago.
Card. They had a ration card. They would say, "This is how much bacon you get per week per household," and they wrote it down. It's shocking. You read these things. I remember, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that some of these habits that were developed during the war by the British, came over into Canada too, because I knew people back home who habitually did their tea bag in their tea and then took it out and dried it out and then used it again later.
And used it again.
And that's British. That's austerity.
I can tell you,
even in the 70s, I knew so these were the children of the war who probably came over from Britain, and this was their behavior during the war as children, and they carried it on even into the 1970s.
Well, right? I can.
So austerity and investment means two things. It means one thing: more taxes.
Well, there was one thing that I was always saying. I wrote this in one of my essays. Capitalism for elite and socialism for the mass. There's a small anecdote that I have. At the end of Soviet Union in the 1980s, people were saying, okay, you want to make tea? pass the broom, take the dust. It's better than the tea that we have. They were at the point where
Right.
they were, like you say, they were recycling the tea bag because they did not have nothing in the shop.
Yeah.
Look at what is happening now in Canada. A rupture in logistic, and it is coming.
Margarine is a response to austerity.
Yes, exactly.
Go figure.
Wasn't
Right?
Nutella as well?
And in order to make it palatable, they had to add yellow dye.
Well, if you
Make
talk
it look
about
like butter. To make
okay,
it look like butter.
if you talk about Nutella and IKEA, who had for example, in Sweden and in France, they had chocolate pie, and suddenly they realized that you had shit in the pie. No, I'm not joking. You can just go on internet, find it. There was a big scandal. They had to remove everything.
You just ruined chocolate for everyone in the
Well,
audience.
but Nutella is not chocolate. Come on, be serious. Good chocolate, it is not Nutella.
Andre, say whatever you want about Jesus, about Muhammad. Leave Nutella out of this. All right.
Nutella. Well, people they are allowed to take any poison they want. That's free will.
Nutella is sacred
They
space.
should not, impose this on other people.
Yeah. Similar argument.
MS is correct. I had aunties and grandmas and whatnot, and friends' moms, and who, if a pair of pants was no longer wearable, it was kept and they would use it for patches later. Yes.
Well, you know what you do with underwear.
Turn
When
it
they're
inside
dirty,
out.
you just upside.
I read an article in Canada during World War I or II. They had advertisements that said, "Don't throw your old underwear out. Give it to us. We can repurpose it into new underwear. Recycle it."
Well, no, so it would have been cotton, which meant it wound up in ammunition charges. Cotton wadding.
I don't know. How explain that to
Well,
us?
it's packing for ammunition.
Oh yes, you're right. Oh, you can imagine you're packing a cannon, and it is shit. I recognize my underwear.
Right? It's no longer fruit of the loom; it's fruit of the cannon fodder.
Well, we will talk. We
Fruit of
will
the
talk
fodder.
later about planned obsolescence, and I can talk about nylon stocking, women nylon stocking.
Yeah.
This is another-
I'd like to touch on Gary's alternate future question for a moment,
Sure.
but not too long, because that we could get like a whole new novel out of that. So imagine if the White Russians would have succeeded. What would have been the immediate fallout if Admiral, I still can't pronounce his name,
Kolchak.
were to defeat Lenin? Then what?
Well,
Immediate, because we're 100 years removed, right? So it's no good. But what would the immediate effect?
I'm not sure that's not an opinion of an historian. I'm just a writer, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it would have ended a civil war. I think they were fueling both sides to destabilize the society. That's the
So you
purpose
think
of
then
it.
that the funding the White Russians was similar to Britain funding India to fight the Russians over Afghanistan, right?
Something like that. I'm
Treating
not sure.
Afghanistan like a buffer zone for conflict, and there were 2 Afghani wars, weren't there, in the 1700s? So you're going back to the 1800s to prevent Russia from
It's
and if you're suggesting that the outside nations, agents and agencies, I call them, were intentionally fomenting civil war on both sides in order to promote destabilization, then the end result, where the White Russians are defeated regardless, turns into a big Jean Le Carré Cold War novel where the Brits interfere and the French try to help and they make it worse.
They make it worse. And what you're mentioning is interesting, because this project of dismantling Russia, not only the country, but the empire, it's a very, very old project. And don't forget, at the time, you had the British Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. They were very great structure, fighting for a certain territory.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. I was hoping that I could get a reason to bring this up. This is your article. This is an article that you wrote. If anybody wants to go read it, Is There a Statesman in the Room? 25th of July. You're painting a story of the British monarchy falling apart in, I think it was the 17th century. Tell us why you picked that point and how it fell apart, and how this degeneracy is not something from 100 years ago or 50 years ago. It's from
No, it
hundreds.
is it is something that, thank you for asking the question. First of all, this is a quote from Baron Metal, the book of Michael Jones, where he shows the degeneracy of the monarchy in the 17th century. Not only cultural, but financial degeneracy. They were bankrupt and they had to finance the king, the war of the king, and it went on and on, because after that, I think Tim mentioned it backstage, the looting of the church. So it's a very old project. You look at the monarchy. If you look at the French monarchy, Louis XIV, the Sun King, or the King's son, was mighty because he was merciful. I like always the expression of Tim. Am I not merciful? He was merciful because he was protecting his subject. Of course, we know the aristocracy. You have a certain level of corruption and degeneracy. We see this in every civilization. The Russian civilization, the Ottoman Empire. It's always the same thing. The elite, at one point, they become corrupted. But I think Tim is right. Am I not merciful? The king is supposed to be the protector of the small people, and in Great Britain, they lose that because of the degeneracy. Sorry for the pronunciation. Michael Jones is explaining this very well in Baron Metal, and he shows that for 300 years, Great Britain has become, I will not say a tyranny, but disconnecting the monarchy from the crown. I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. If you are aware of your duty, you will not oppress your people. You will protect them. Of course, you are the king. You rule, but like Tim says, you rule and you're merciful. So when I wrote that, I will just finish on it. When I wrote that, I was asking myself, do we have a statement in Canada? A statement or statewoman? We can refer to Daniel Smith. Do we have? My answer now is no. We will not have a savior. But in the text, I always say we have a statement in each and every one of us. We all have a small part of hero. How can we personally act to change our behavior? That was the intention of the article.
I want to talk about Europe briefly, and then we'll come back to. Is there a statesman in Canada? There is no elected official in Canada behaving as a statesman or diplomat, because if they were, they would be speaking out, and they are not.
They're not.
So there is no elected official acting as a representative of their constituent. I'm not referring to the party, a representative of their constituency, behaving as a statesman or a diplomat. Now, I want to hop back to Europe for a bit, and I want to refer to Greater Europe because this includes the Ottoman. Because the Ottoman very desperately wanted to be part of mainland Europe. In spite of the Muslim and their cultural, they wanted to be part of that relationship, right? The reason why the Britain took great pains to call them the sick man of Europe was to create a cultural rejection in Western Europe of the Ottoman Empire. All of their stuff aside, because they were not good people either, but they desperately wanted to be part of the Western trade envelope. So we have the Ottomans, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which the Ottomans don't exist anymore. Massive land, right? Land geography, gone. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, all of Eastern Europe, like literally all of Eastern Europe, with the exception of Greece, right? All of Eastern Europe, gone. Now, was that balkanized, right?
Balkanized, that's a very good expression.
Right? So, and now we have this continuous pressure of what I think is what they believe to be the last of the old guard nations or empires. Ottoman Empire got rid of it. Austro-Hungarian Empire got rid of it. Russian Empire frickin' thing won't die, but they're trying to get rid of it. But it's the
You
the
can't
whole
try to
country
kill it.
is Rasputin. It just won't fricking die, right? So, and then you've got the EU, right? So that means all these other smaller countries gone. Gone. They exist in that they have a parliament, their own. They exist in that they have a flag, what's left of it. And then for a time, Britain was absorbed into it because I think Britain actually foolishly believed they could conquer Europe using this economic trade relationship, and then realized, no, we can't. So they're
So
out, they're out
they
of there.
hopped out.
So they hopped out. And in hopping out, realized, shit, we have no resources. Let's go to Anzac, right? Let's go. So let's go to Canada. Let's go to New Zealand. Let's go to Australia.
Colonies.
Wow, there's so much water in between. And so they have their own issues. So then what they end up doing instead is they motivate the local governments in Canada, in New Zealand, in Australia, and activate them to send our stuff to Britain so they don't have to come and get it, which is that's colonialism.
That's it.
Before,
You're right. And
before Andre, just one
Go
thing.
ahead.
Thank you, Kirk Reese, for reposting the stream.
Kirk.
Go ahead, Andre.
Hi, Kirk. I will just a small comment about the Ottoman Empire, who wanted desperately to be part of Europe. Look at the European Union. Turkey wants to desperately be part of European Union since 25 years, and they're waiting at the door, and they're seeing all those other countries, the ex-Soviet Union Republic. They're going in front of them. Sorry, I have my ticket, and Turkey is waiting. And can you expect a man like Erdogan to accept this? There's a small anecdote about an Arab. You cannot buy an Arab. You can rent it, but you cannot buy it. So so now why sometimes you look at Erdogan. Erdogan is always playing the dervish. How do you call this? Dervish turner. He's turning around, playing a little bit with Russia, playing a little bit with European Union, playing a little bit with Great Britain, because he's in the center of and he desperately wants to be part of EU. Russia was like that until 2022. The window on the West with Peter the Great, the window of the West, Russian, they always see themselves as European, but they have their back on Asia. What happens? They want to be part of European Union. They will even Putin admitted this. 2 times he asked to be part of NATO, and NATO said no. So, and they get frustrated. So it's this, what Tim is mentioning about Europe. I want to be part of the club. No, you stay out. You stay out. And it's funny because I stay out. Okay, I will betray you, or I will, change my strategy.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was long.
And Canada repeats this on a continental level, because you look at our separate provinces and our relationship with each other and with Ottawa. Right? It's you look at the disgruntlement between Alberta and Quebec, right? It's Saskatchewan, Manitoba. We want to be part of, and Ontario says no, I don't think so.
No.
Right? The West says we want better representation. We want more representation, and Ottawa says, or Toronto, right? Toronto and Montreal say no, I don't think so. Right? And they yeah, but PEI, and they said what? PEI is special. Fuck off. Don't touch PEI. Right? PEI is our sacred cow, right?
You know what will
We're
happen?
Doing the same thing.
We are the 6th now in 5 days. Pierre Saint-Paul Plamondon, who is the leader of the Parti Québécois, will go to Alberta in 5 days. He's a sovereignist, nationalist, the independence of Quebec. And I say to Albertans, lock your door. The Quebec Trotsky is arriving in Alberta. Lock your door. Don't let him in. He's a traitor. He's first of all, he's a castrated man, but he's a traitor. So just lock your door. Don't. He will implement the United Nations 2030 agenda. And he will derail the I would say the independence, the process of independence of Alberta. That's an advice from the Quebecers.
With the exception of the British Columbia NDP party, who fashions themselves after Beijing almost directly. The rest of the Canadian governments at all levels are all uniparty.
Yes.
All of them.
Did I hear NDP?
I didn't mean to
NDP.
drop it that way, but yeah, sure, let's do that.
No, we don't
Yeah.
have to. I just everybody
No,
knows
it's
about
okay.
this.
It's okay. So yeah, but this is the federal NDP. However, we know that all NDP organizations are part of this interoperable
Yeah.
or inter-networked organization. So what you see in one province, provincially or locally, you're going to find at a national level as well. Yes.
So we don't actually have to talk about this.
No, but you talk about
No,
NDP. You mean
yeah.
the new demonic party? That's I
You're
don't know.
full of those. Yeah.
The new
Of course,
demographic
I'm a
party.
writer.
What was the
my,
other
my
one?
mind
The
is always
Canadian Bolshevik Corporation.
This
Exactly.
Canadian, yeah, Canadian
Okay.
Bolshevik,
It's
Colombian
too
Bolshevik
easy.
Corporation.
It's
Let
too
me
easy.
It's
let
too
me
easy.
try to transition us to our second topic, and I'll do it this way. I have a theory that in the West we've been battling the banking system for so long. Like the banks screw us over, and we're trying to find a way out of this. So Andre, you always cite Michael Jones. He's emphasizing Christianity to take back the money supply. I've been reading a lot about Matthew Ehret, the nationalist group. They believe in a state sovereign bank and the issuing of credit out of thin air for what they call productive debt. So everyone's like scrambling to find a way out of this. But based on what you two have just said, giving power to the government is not really a good idea. I mean, now they're talking about austerity, which is basically don't eat and we'll print money and we'll make you spend it quickly. And one final thing, I'm going to cite Professor Bruce Party. He always says we're moving power around rather than taking power back. So, Andre, you've been at a conference. I was wondering if you could speak to our second topic, which would be something like the social credit movement, or what did you learn at this conference? How would you address what I just said?
First of all, I like the text, the title, "The Amazing Adventure of Andre Meloche." I feel like I'm a little wizard or something like that. Or maybe
you can borrow my hat.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm a leprechaun.
He's got this
like
big
that.
tin can of tomatoes under one arm and a hat and a
I
broomstick.
was I had
All the
two
memes.
interview with Michael Jones, and I interviewed I read a lot of his books, and the fascinating books. And he was in Montreal last week, 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, for a conference about social credit. I didn't know nothing about social credit until one week and a half ago. So I was invited by the Pilgrims of Saint Michael in Rougemont, Quebec. It's a Christian group. They have a quite nice land with a church. They're very devoted Catholic, and Michael Jones was invited there to have a speech, and it was a conference, 4-day conference about social credit. I didn't even know what it was. I arrived there. First of all, the welcome was extraordinary. People were so kind. People were very modest and humble. They were very skilled. They were not afraid to speak. I was not afraid to speak. My wife was accompanying me, and it was a very interesting conference. And I met some great individual, Oliver Haydorn, who's a professor in philosophy, and he's promoting social credit since many years for the Pilgrims. What I've learned on what we call social credit, it's what I would say, do we choose between the plague, capitalism, or the structure of capitalism, and cholera, socialism, or I would say Pfizer or Moderna? What is the
That's
meaning?
syphilis.
Well, that's Freud. That's Freud or Nietzsche. But anyway, what is the expression social credit? Social, man is a social animal. We have to meet. You met 2 weeks ago at a conference. You met for the first time in person. I was very happy. I met Michael Jones. He did a speech in French. It was very funny because he asked me, he said, "How is my French?" I said, "You have a German accent." He was not happy. I said, "It's okay. You taught in Germany." So man is a social animal. And the word credit comes from the Italian credito or the Latin creditum, which means faith, which means believe, trust. social trust. Do we have social trust today in our modern system, capitalism? No, we don't trust the elite. We don't trust the government. We don't trust the bank, and we are stuck in a system that creates debt. Yes, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Credito, as in creed.
No, no, as in trust, to believe, to to trust. That comes from
Credit.
Latin.
Okay.
Yeah, credit. Yes, credit, and that's what credit. Let's say I credit. Let's say I gave you credit for something you did, Tim. So
Credibility.
credibility, or let's say I write something, I quote you. Tim Knight said that. I quote you, but I give you the credit of the phrase. That's the first thing. The expression social credit uh, was was it hijacked by the Chinese Communist Party, because we hear it all the time now. Even the people at the what they call the social credit of Clifford Hugh Douglas. I will talk about him a little bit further. They don't know if the Chinese Communist Party hijacked the expression, because the difference between the system of the Communist Party is they will control you through your behavior. You don't eat meat. You don't drive more than 200 kilometers per month. You're not allowed to go out from a 15-minute city. You're not allowed to have more children. The concept of the social digital ID. CDBC, we will give you money or credit, but you will have to spend it, else it will just have no value. So that's what I learned about the concept of social credit that was invented by Clifford Hugh Douglas. He was a British engineer, an economist, and it's a doctrine. Then there are differences, and I discovered that there was a British Columbia Social Credit Party, and the so famous Kim Campbell, who was Prime Minister of Canada for a couple of days, I think. She was part of the British Social Credit. You had an Alberta Social Credit Party with William Haberhart, who was a politician in Alberta from 1935 till 1943. And you had also a social credit party in Quebec. You had Louis Evans, who is one of the founder of social credit in Quebec, with Gilbert Côté-Mercier, the Pilgrim of St. Michael. And there was a federal party in Canada, and the leader was Réal Cahouette, and they had a provincial party. So they were trying to implement this doctrine, some good points in it. Me, I have a lot of questions, but I'm not familiar enough with the all the concept, the dividend, the discount, producer, consumer, the concept of central bank controlling the money. Okay, the national central bank, for example, but printing too much money to enslave people through credit. That's what we have now. So I don't know how the movement or the doctrine can be implemented. The question I could ask to them, and I will eventually, is how come this system was invented in 1931, and how come it is not implemented practically 100 years after? Is it because the actual system has power and doesn't want to see it? I have some hypothesis about this, because I think the system is good, but it is, from my understanding now,
Let's go to Tim.
I don't see how you can implement this now.
Tim, go ahead.
You said 1931, so I'm thinking Statute of Westminster.
Well, yes, you're
Because,
right.
I mean, at that level of politics, there's a lot of triggering events.
Yes. What I could just say, I will
Yeah.
just
And
end on.
I have a direct question. Sorry to interrupt you, but I have a direct question.
Go ahead.
As in your work with Quebec Hydro, you became very well versed in hydroelectric economics.
Yes.
So how do you see a social credit model affecting a utility like hydro?
Well, it's quite simple. In 2000, the concept of electricity was a utility. It's an essential services. And in 2000, they changed the definition to a product. And what happened is that you're not obliged anymore to supply electricity to somebody who doesn't pay. So what you're mentioning is, if you nationalize an industry, it has to be for the greater good. It has to be for people. It not for profit. And not meaning not profit doesn't mean that you do not do do not grow. You do not have revenue. But if you have too much profit, there's no limit on profit. Nowhere. It's always, and I referred to something that I discovered. It was quite interesting. If I can just, it's a small phrase. Wait, I will find it. Okay. This is the opposition between a rational pursuit of profit as a sign of God's glory. Some people, they believe that because I'm wealthy, I make more and more money. It's God that gave me this
divine right.
Define right, exactly. So I think the system now is so broken that Payman, you were mentioning Professor Party. Everybody's trying to find a way to do a transition between the system that is broken to something that would be suitable. We talk about the monarchy, we talk about the republic. Honestly, in my opinion, I don't know where we're going, but we are going, especially
what makes
with
us crazy enough to think that we can have a bloodless transition.
Well, I met also Mark Anderson, who was a journalist in United States. I think he's from Texas, and he's from the American Free Press. We talked about Borealis. We talked about many subjects about federating alternative media, and he said one thing. He did a speech, and he said, "If you think that you will have a bloodless transition, you're wrong." Exactly what you're mentioning. We will have to get our hands dirty. I don't know how. And I'm not advocating for violence. Not what I'm saying.
No. Yeah.
But we will have to stand up.
Yeah. The intellectual and the academic, we believe we can logic our way into the next step.
Yeah.
Or logic our way into a new civilization. And we forget that humans are first and foremost full of pathos. We are experiential. Right, and we take everything personally. So it's not possible to transition without blood, and this is historically accurate, right? And I don't mean to be nihilistic when I say it, because I mean, I'm short and fat and slow and stiff, and I'm not going to do well in a fight. Right. So I would rather have a logic or a rational transition that convinces people to abandon their wealth or to abandon their poverty, because people can be attached to that too. They just don't want to admit it. Right. How many people are proud of their poverty? A lot. Right. A lot. And so generational welfare is an example of that to a degree. So the idea of social credit, as I've been reading and describe, and it's been described, sounds to me like an attempt by capitalists to reframe socialist policies.
In a way.
Well, yes, go ahead.
Can I just jump in, actually, Andre? Our audience might not actually know what social credit is. So you had all of these people that they felt like they were being taken advantage of by
abused
corporations.
Yes.
They're not getting paid their fair wage.
Yeah.
I think it's a living wage is the term some people use. So this guy came up with this idea. He said, all right, whatever, I'm simplifying this, whatever they don't make through wages, the government should print money and give them that money. And furthermore, if they can't afford something like bread, the government should step in and price control that bread. So at command economy, like set prices. I'm simplifying it, but that's kind of what it is.
Well, you're describing socialism, which is not. It is not. It is. That's why I was making a difference between socialism and capitalism. Let's not forget that when you have this control of price, it's like Adam Smith. The market regulates itself. No, it does not. We saw it with the 2008 crisis, how Lehman Brothers was taking advantage of its customers. I saw it personally at Hydro-Quebec in 2000 and 2002 when Enron filed for bankruptcy. Hydro-Quebec had short position at the time. We lost millions of dollars because we were trading online, and we lost a lot of money when Enron suddenly from in one night filed for bankruptcy, and we lost all that money. The leverage, the CEO of Enron committed suicide after. They take advantage of their position, they take advantage of their authority, and they manipulate the market. That's what is happening always. When you're very big, you can manipulate the market. Amazon, for example, is manipulating the distribution market, and you deprive small businesses of their income, and one day you control the price. That's how do you say this? Capitalist predator. Yes, the price.
Predatory. Okay, so let me hit on C.H. Douglas. It's interesting that he's here because it's very good timing. Fill the gap. No,
He's talking about usury.
Fill-
The issue
fill
is
it with-
usury.
It's
Get
usury.
free.
It is
Thank you.
usury.
That's where I'm trying to go. So if we eliminate usury, does that remove the motivation for a hyper capitalism?
Okay, I can say something about usury, and I think it's very related. When we were at the conference, the speaker was talking about profit, and a young man who was a trader, he was there, and he said, "But profit, the Fed, for example, in United States, it's not a private entity because the government borrows the money from the Fed. Let's say I lend you $1,000, Tim, and I lend you the money without interest, and I share the risk." When I said this, they were shocked because I said there's no profit without risk. Why usury? Because if it's the third time that I lend you money, $1,000, and you've never pay back, the fourth time I will say, "Well, Tim, you don't pay me back, so I will charge you an interest." That's part of the risk management. They were shocked when I talked about risk management. I said, I take a risk. If Tim says, "Can you lend me $1,000 because I need an operation or something like that?" But if you go buy a cigarette or whatever and you screw your life, I take a risk, and there's no value. That's why labor, there's no value. When I talk about leverage, I think it is important to understand what is risk management. Why we charge interest. The bank charges interest because they don't want to take the risk.
Is this the same Douglas in the 30s who came up with the social credit system?
So
Yeah.
let's look at the
I
last.
don't know.
Let's
don't
look
know,
at the
but
last sentence.
What,
But
Businesses
I can-
demand more money than they distribute in wages. That's
Well,
true. That's
that's
true.
true.
But who says we have to use a modern business model?
The
Right?
modern
Because the more I look at government models, the more I am inclined to want a city state.
you mentioned that.
Because you're by reducing the size of your market initially, because you can still have intercity relations, right? Intercity alliances, etc. It is man's continuous urge to expand. We started talking about that. The show was about this continuous urge to expand. If we remove, and again, that'll never happen, but many things will never happen. If your market is small, then the guild person or the craftsman has a better chance to compete. But modern businesses are industrialized institutions, right? And modern businesses, how much of their stuff that's being sold in North America actually comes from China? Right. So the degree, number one, the degree of financial input is offset because they charge more for the product, but they make an effort to not pay as much for labor because labor generally costs 1/3 of your operating expenses. So this system itself, while we are working with it and it all, it works in this system, the system itself is what's broken. The system itself it's too big. It's too big to fail, but it's also becoming too big to work. It's
Well,
too cumbersome. It's
too
too
big
big
to
to
fail.
work, right? It's too
Too
big to work. And so what's our response? Let's modify let's change the government. You don't want to
no, no,
change
no.
the size. They don't want to change the size. They want to change how money is identified or where money goes, or using the government to offset this or to offset that. That's still the same system. It's still the same system. You're changing policy, you're not changing the system.
I have two remarks. The first one, you're mentioning too big to fail. That's it's quite funny because Lehman Brothers was like this. And
Yeah.
don't forget one thing: we have knowledge. Knowledge, you can share it. Information, you pay for it. That's the first remark. The second remark is in the social credit system of Douglas, they're talking about full employment, and Oliver Adorn is explaining this in a podcast. Full employment. You say full employment, everybody should work, labor is important, have a goal in life. What's the problem when we will have AI will replace, let's say, 40 to 50% of the labor in, intellectual domain? People will be unemployed. So the idea of full employment is in their opinion, or in their the way they explain it, is not a rational position. Think about something that was presented last week. Two small examples. The 100-year-old light bulb.
Yeah.
There's a 120-year-old light bulb that is installed in a fire casern in the United States. It was never turned off, and there was a video camera in the 60s they started, and they realized that it was never turned off, and it's still running after 120 years. And when it was 100 years old, they celebrated the anniversary of the light bulb. They invited people to the celebration. They thought maybe 100 people will show up. They had close to 900 people celebrating the anniversary of the light bulb. They sang for the happy birthday, and they had a cake. That's the first thing. The second thing is the nylon stocking. When DuPont created the first set of nylon stocking for women, they were indestructible. And after that, all the chemists, they had to change the formula to make it less resistant. That's what we call planned obsolescence. So in the system of Douglas, he's saying we have the knowledge, but the structure of the system will destroy things. They will do it intentionally to create a demand. So I think in the system, the social credit, they are challenging classic idea of capitalism: offer and demand, full employment, credit as a leverage. So it's I think there's a lot to learn from this system, and how come it is not implemented practically 100 years after its creation?
I just want to go back to what C.H. Douglas said. I think he's pushing back on me, which is fine. So I said it's usury. He goes, it's not usury. He's talking about the gap that's caused by like the businesses demand more money than they distribute in wages. And then before that, he said, we fill that difference, that gap, with more debt money from banks. I think what he's saying is with every cycle, it's probably indirect, but the workers have to borrow money to pay for their lives because they're not being paid the living wage. Is that the problem? Like, I can't believe that the solution is government just printing money and giving it to people.
No,
something's got to be broken.
He's right. Don't forget something. When women started to enter the labor force during the war, they did not go back to their kitchen. And what happened? You have a lot of people who arrive on the market to work, so you pushes the wages down. Then you arrive with immigration. You do the same thing. You don't have birth replacement. So what do? You import a lot of immigrants, and you always push the wages down. It's always like that. And if you pushes the wages down,
and
what?
Who's pushing the wages down?
Well, the structure of the capital, big
The
industries,
structure
big
doesn't, because the structure has no voice. The structure doesn't pick up a pen and tell the union, you're
it's
not
it's
getting your right.
it's
It's the
but don't forget
business
one thing.
owners and the shareholders who determine how much
Yes,
they expect to make, and they will take it from whomever, including their customers, to make their dividend.
look at what is happening right now in Canada. The unemployment rate now is 7.1%, rising. And Carney said the unemployment rate is very high, yet the people from 16 to 22 cannot find a job. So the great would say stakeholders, they say, oh, we need more immigration because we don't have enough people who can work. You don't hire a Canadian young people. They're not even hired in Tim Horton or whatever. They don't hire them anymore. They hire immigrants because their income are subsidized by the government. So
Right.
they're just pushing the wages down, always,
So
always. It's always the
so
same pattern.
two culprits. Two culprits. One, the government brings in the replacement work population and then turns
Yes.
them into replacement workers through heavy subsidization. And businesses take advantage of this heavy subsidization in order to save money. And they're still charging the same for the product, which means they're actually making more profit. And they're
Always.
satisfied to throw citizens under the bus to do so. So I suggest that business owners right now in Canada are the primary contributors to our employment and immigration crisis
I
because
would say,
they take advantage of the situation to their own benefit.
well, Tim, that's human nature. Somebody takes advantage. If you have a moral code, you say, okay, if I
It's
don't do it, somebody else will do it.
it's
That's
it's
always the
human.
the
Yes,
way.
of course. It's
It's human
human
nature.
nature, but legislation corrals bad behavior,
Yes, yes, you're right. You're right.
right?
So
Good
in a sense,
legislation corrals bad behavior. And we have the government once again, because they did it in 2020 during the COVID madness, where they offloaded the heavy hand onto small businesses and onto businesses and said, if you want to stay in business, you're gonna shut down for 2 months
exactly,
and
exactly.
then we will
That's
subsidize you, right? So and the businesses that went along with it because they were more interested in their own survival than in contributing to their local community in a responsible fashion. And to me, the franchise, the big companies, the big companies don't care if they lose a couple of stores or they lose 20 stores across, as long as they keep their doors open. So they will go in and they will accept these handouts from the government so that they can continue to say, I know because I've experienced it firsthand. I watched it happen in Best Buy, right? And it's Best Buy is too big to fail, right? And that store actually right now has shifted from a predominantly citizen based employment roster to who are primarily between 17 and 22 ish, right? And now they're almost exclusively new residents and or the children of new residents.
It's
And Best Buy
this
still posts a profit. So tell me what's going on.
this guy Douglas is I think he's like an expert economist. I'm getting a
I
does
would.
not compute moment here.
I'm sorry. I would not be surprised that it is Mr. Oliver Haythorn, because I invited him to comment, so I would not be surprised. And
Stop
if it
inviting
is
your
him,
smart friends, man. You're making
no,
us
no,
look
no,
dumb.
no, no, no,
What
no.
is this
I'm
bringing in
sorry. He wrote.
academics? We have no
I'm
room for academics here.
but
The
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He wrote many books, and I'm eager to read them. Why mass immigration supports economic financial expansion. If you have a society that grows slowly, your population is growing. You have children, they integrate slowly, they are educated, and when they arrive 16, 18, 20, they integrate the labor force, or they go to university, they a little bit more late. They have the time to absorb cultural behavior, the tradition. When you arrive with immigrants who are, let's say, 25 years old, they arrive here. They know nothing, and they know nothing of the structure, but they have needs as adults. They have need. They need a job. They need a house. They need a flat. They need an apartment. So you don't have the time to
My
slowly
children need a
integrate.
job, and they were born here.
But that's what I say, because they grew slowly, and one day they integrate the labor force. You arrive with immigrants. They arrive here. Immediately, they need something. That's why you have
And
so
who
much
pays for
people.
that? And
You
who
and
pays
me,
for that?
people,
Right.
the labor force,
Right.
the labor
So
force.
instead of bringing in people from outside saying we need to improve our labor force and we need to bump our GDP, which is a lie. But instead of doing that, why don't they simply encourage people to have more families and to have more children?
Well, Viktor Orban in Hungary is promoting the birth policies. Uh, uh, where do you see this in Canada? Nowhere. Nowhere. There's
So,
no birth policy.
right,
The opposite, we're sterilizing people with transgender ideology and abortion, and we're not pushing people to have more to create a family. It's
so
the total
we're
opposite.
yeah. And so the result of inflation is that people who live here cannot afford to work. And as a result of that, or not can afford a living wage, so to speak. So then we're bringing in this incredible immigration, 5 million people in the last 10 years, I think, which is insane. And who funds them the first year that they're here?
Five
$81,000 and change.
per year.
First year. I have never in my life made that much money in 1 year,
You can imagine
and
that.
I live here.
Let me
I was
ask a
born
question,
here.
Tim. Right now we're criticizing immigration. C.H. Douglas, what he's saying is the system, in order for it to work, the economy has to grow, and he's saying that's the purpose of immigration. But if you're bringing immigrants in and they're not growing the economy, what's going on? Because the moment they land, they start using up services, healthcare, education, policing, roads.
More than 3/4 of Canada's economy is services, not productivity,
Exactly.
right? So if you want to grow the economy, then cut down some trees and make some homegrown lumber products all the way through, right?
Here, here.
Own the vertical channel. Own the vertical channel, right? Get into the lumber industry, use lumber, make lumber products and sell lumber products and then sell them outside the country as well. Do the same thing with our mining operations, the same thing with our fishing operations, same thing with our agriculture operations. Trudeau Sr. murdered textile industry in Canada in the 70s and 80s. Nobody
Exactly.
pays attention to that, right? Barbara Emile back in the late 80s wrote a brilliant article about it. Showed up on my internet one day, and I just went, "This is incredible. They've been doing this for 60 years, right? Of slowly murdering Canada's ability to resource and develop products for itself, and slowly pushing us more and more into a service-based economy. There is no growing a service-based economy.
No, it
There
does
isn't.
not.
It does not exist. A service-based I'll tell you why. An airport gets built. Technically still a service, but let's treat it like because it's facilitating trade, facilitating transport. So let's say we'll treat it like a product for the sake of my example. The airport goes in there, the major corner coming off the freeway is built and there's a gas station. The moment the first gas station is there, the second gas station is on the corner opposite it, right? And so you watch as development begins. It's all service related, right? A convenience store, a small mom and pop restaurant, a laundromat opens up, a taxi service puts his station over there, et cetera, et cetera. But it's all services. Absolutely, it's like I'm going to get the number wrong. 80% of every intersection in Canada is 100% services oriented. You do not grow an economy with services. It cannot happen.
No,
Cannot.
you do not grow it because you produce everything outside. All the goods are produced outside. That's the first thing. What you mentioned, I think it's important. Don't forget one thing. The debt is growing, and I think he's mentioning it. Program on public debt. This is Ponzi scheme. This is Ponzi scheme. The Ponzi scheme is the first in is the first out. The first in makes money. The second one goes in, and the last one at the end is losing money. That's a Ponzi scheme. The structure of the debt is a Ponzi scheme. You can say, okay, I can lend you money. You are in debt to me. But now with $1.3 trillion in Canada, and I would just talk about Quebec, $225 billion for 9 million people. This is insane. This and Carney arrives with austerity and investment in military, investment in the war economy, but austerity for everybody. Those people are completely lunatics or
national programs that
Bolshevik.
the national programs he's developing are meant to fund Europe.
Of
He
course,
said so. He said
they
so.
will fund Europe, who will supply
minerals for the
Ukraine.
war in Ukraine.
They will. That's it. It's not complicated. It's very simple. I think
Yeah.
also Matthew Arrett was showing in many of his podcasts. I think Payment, you had a very great interview with him about the possible alliance between Russia and United States. Europe
Yep.
is terrified of this. Terrified, because if it would
For
happen,
good reason.
Canada
good
would
reason.
be stuck.
Can you
Canada
imagine?
would
So
be.
you look. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. Canada would be stuck between two great superpower. What? Who with whom you will have an alliance?
So we would like it would be like an Oreo cookie. It
Well,
would be the cream.
you don't want me to talk about Oreo cookie because you will not like what I will tell you about it.
All right.
Right, so I want to make
What-
a quick comment regarding C.H. Douglas. It's not that I oppose this. What I do like is that we're actually talking about what I still think is a form of socialism, but it's in capitalist language. And that is at least a language that the West conservative mind would be more willing to have a conversation in. I know
Tim-
that sounds really academic, but I do think it's useful that this enters into the public consciousness.
I just want to jump right off of that. Let's do a thought experiment. If we had social credit, so you have businesses are not paying, let's call it a living wage, and the government steps in and they're offering credit, so they're printing money to the workers. Top ups, yeah, like the company's only giving them $10 an hour. The government comes in and gives them another $10. No, but my question is, like, practically, what's the effect of that? I mean, you're inflating your money supply to steal the profits away from the business?
The system is more complex. It's not, the government does not intervene between the producer and the consumers. It's more of you produce for people and not to create a demand. You produce for what people need. I buy a washing machine. Why do I have to buy a washing machine every 5 years? Planned obsolescence. Why they make product more cheap so they can break? Because they can sell you more. They go to see any companies, they will say, wait, if I make something so good, I will be
Andre,
bankrupt.
I get what you're saying, but my question
is reverse the system.
Is it UBI? Like what is social?
No,
it's UBI.
This is one question that I will have to ask to Professor Adorn, because UBI, and I think he mentioned it in one of his podcasts. He said UBI can be very dangerous because what will happen? People will not work, they become lazy, and they stay on welfare, for example. But in the system, they say, okay, you have dividends, but if you're not contributing to the labor force for any reason, what will happen? Your dividend will grow down, will go down slowly until you have nothing, because you have to contribute to the structure. Look at the comment, universalization of capitalism. We're all shareholders.
That's proletariat language.
Well, that's proletarian language, but let's say it's human language. You adapt the system to man and not the opposite.
What we're seeing now is the system to the single man, not human. Like we're collectivizing. This model continues to collectivize.
It collectivizes.
We offload some balancing mechanism onto a governing body.
This is a cooperative, right?
Well, cooperative, don't forget one thing. Let's say we talk about libertarianism. Oh, I don't want any government. Are you free without any institution? In my opinion, you're not. It means that you need an institution. And we were talking. This is one question I will ask about what I wrote. Political populist movement and political party. We were talking about how a populist movement has to migrate to be or mutate to be a political party with status, a constitution, an organization. If you don't have this, you have no power. So if you say libertarianism is the solution, go ahead, take a gun and make your own law. It will not work either. We're stuck between two systems that are obsolete, capitalism and socialism. I don't say it is social credit. I say we have to think about how we can make sure that people are free enough to trade with each other, capitalism, and how we can collectivize things. A certain type of socialism, not the experiment that was in Russia, for example, or in Soviet Union, because there it was a nightmare up to a certain point. But you have to understand that in Soviet Union, education was very important. People were educated. Their general culture was very high. What do we have here now? They're teaching gender ideology in primary school. They don't teach arithmetic. They don't teach language. They don't teach history. They don't teach geography. They want to make people more stupid so they can control them. That's very simple.
Anything you want to add, Tim, before we move on to topic 3?
Yeah, I think the Douglas model is worth further exploration. I'm not saying I disagree with out of hand. It's my gut feels like it's reskinning communism. But I want to talk more about further shows or whatever, and I'll actually have to look and read the material. So
well, that's important, and if at least they're proposing something. When somebody tells me this is not good what you're doing, propose something better.
Yeah, that's
arrive
true.
with a system, and it is a system. Then we can ask questions. Like me, I have a question: how do you do you make the transition between what we have and a model like this? Wait, people will say UBI, I don't want, because I have my small business and I can live. You don't want to put people on welfare state.
Right.
They want to be independent. So I have a lot of questions too toward the model. I'm not familiar enough with it. Actually,
well, I think,
Andre, you sent me a couple
of
videos, and I was watching the tutorial. I'm not trying to be hard on Mr. Douglas here, but I'm with Tim on this one. It sounds like it's a sovereign wealth fund or UBI. I can't get my head around it.
It is not. It is not. It is not. It is not. It is something. What I saw during the conference, it is not that. And like I say, if I write novels, and if you ask me, can you summarize your novel? I say, no, read the book.
Fair.
Read the book. Read the book. Read the book,
fair.
and after that we can talk about it. Else, if I summarize in 5 minutes, first of all, I will lose the money because you will not buy the book. Why did I write it in the first time? So you have to at least to make an effort to understand the system. Then you can criticize it. Then you can ask hard question. I wrote to Professor Adorn because we became good friends and we had very great conversation. And I said, I'm very happy. It was very great conference. We had and I will have hard question for you. And he laughed because he wrote back and he said, I'm waiting for your hard question. That's what it is. Critical thinking.
So social credit, it's not just in BC and Alberta. Mr. Douglas says right now the banks profit from filling the gap with debt. We say the citizens should profit from filling the gap. Federally, Canada did this from 1930 something to 1974, where we had a national, like a sovereign state bank. Yes. And what the bank would do is it would do infrastructure investments, so dams, highways. And then from there, it went to healthcare, and then from there, it went to educating nurses and putting them in homes.
So then,
this is what they call them
for funding the programs.
Well,
I'm not. Sorry. Let me just jump in between you two. I'm not arguing for or against it. I'm saying when I was talking to the voters, specifically between 80 and like 95, they thought fondly of this. So this is something that existed. It was part of Canada's culture.
By the 60s, you saw it in the 50s, and the reconstruction after the war was in Europe, but here we benefit from the industrialization. So the government was a project manager, if you want to use a modern
Yeah,
expression.
yeah.
They were
Well,
they
the
were
St. Lawrence Seaway, right? The St. Lawrence lock
yes,
system. They're the
exactly,
largest single construction site in North America, even
exactly.
today.
The James Bay and the Manic complex in north of Quebec was under the government of Union Nationale, and after that it was the Liberal. But they had this, and that created Hydro-Quebec. We have the best engineer in the world in Quebec until the 70s. At the end of the 70s, after that it started to decay. So I think the concept of government today is so corrupted that we are afraid of the word. Governance means to govern, to guide people. We have to go back to noble ideas and definition.
So
And
the noblesse oblige is the
no,
concept, right?
noblesse oblige. And I will say, Professor Adorn could explain this system much better than me, because I was just there for 2 days. It was quite fascinating what I discovered. A lot of people who were happy to discuss and debate subjects that are not debated by our politicians. They should discuss this. They should debate. They don't have the knowledge to do it.
So I didn't think this segment would go on for this long. I really want to talk about it for longer, but we got another segment. Let me bring this up. The last one is Castle Doctrine. I'm going to start bringing up a couple of things on screen share. I'm going to throw it over to maybe Tim. This is it's crazy what's going on in Canada. You don't have the right to self-defense. Crime is through the roof. The police are treating us like parasites. What do you think, Tim?
It's exactly what you said. It's criminals are getting away with unfathomably heinous crimes against toddlers and getting away with it. And I am at a complete loss for words, because people like this fella, who are a disgrace to the badge beyond all possible redemption, is suggesting that if somebody comes into your own home and commits heinous acts against you and your family and your property, that you are just supposed to lay back and open your legs and take it. And that after it's done, while you're busy bleeding out on the floor, then maybe you can call 911 and they'll send an ambulance to pick up your corpse. So yeah, Castle Doctrine, bring it on. 100%. Yeah. And to be honest, I'm personally open up to a very wide, broad definition of lethal force. That if you came into my home for the purpose of causing harm or taking my property, I have undeniable right to use lethal force to either remove you from my property or prevent you from causing harm or taking my property. Up to and including lethal force. 100%. We are there. And if our police won't do the job, what do they leave us with? Nothing. Nothing. If someone were to come into my home with the intention of causing harm to my son or my mother who lives with us, that person one of us is leaving in a body bag. Fact. And I don't have any firearms. I don't need a firearm.
You don't need
I don't
any.
need a firearm.
Well, you don't need any.
Right?
It is
No.
a metaphor.
Right. So this is not a gun discussion. This is about being able to protect my home and my family, my children from violent actions. We used to call what home invasion, right? These are the words that showed up every now and then in the 80s and the 90s in Canada, and everybody was offended. It's like No, I don't care about whether the man came from a bad background or he was really rough or he was strung out on drugs. You knocked on the wrong door, son. Get out of my door. And if you do not leave of your own free will, one of us is leaving in a bag. Fact. And we need more, especially fathers, to begin acting this way and to be prepared, to be prepared to accept the consequences, because this is where we are. We were idiots and we voted in morons and we didn't hold the government to the fire and they permitted this to happen. Now this is the line, right? So you got this guy who got off on bail after, I can't even repeat the words,
No.
right? Like and then other people saying that the fella who is being told to remove cameras from his own home because they look out onto the street. Are you kidding me? So are we at the point in a surveillance state where the only one permitted to surveil is the state? Why is he not allowed to have cameras out on the street as a perimeter check? Look at the street. He lives on a very busy, active corner, right? He doesn't really have any defense because his house actually corners onto a busy street and intersection. And you're telling me that he doesn't have the right to put cameras up to give, and cameras do what? They give you advance warning, maybe, if you're watching, and they record an event. So what is it they want? What is it they want? The government wants you to not record. They don't want you to record proof of a crime. So that if it's just your word against a judge or against a well-paid lawyer who's paid to make sure the mandate is maintained, then you will have no evidence that will be acceptable by right of being actual, incontrovertible, third-party recorded material. So the
What kind of
purpose of
flag is
telling people to stop surveilling is to get rid of evidence before it gets recorded.
Andre?
Well, there's one thing I can relate this to the white guard we were talking about earlier, and the white guard in the novels of Mikhail Bulgakov. It is a civil war in Ukraine. You have no possibility to know. You have no possibility to know if the person who's coming is friendly or hostile. The friend that you have today will maybe betray you tomorrow. That's the notion or the definition of civil war. What we're seeing now, remember the COVID mandate. They isolate us. They push us in our home. You cannot go out. Me, I have 2 acres of land. I could walk on my land, but I can imagine you live in a flat in Montreal, Vancouver, Toronto, and you cannot even go on the sidewalk. You will have a $6,000 fine. They're pushing us slowly inside of our house, removing the fact that we can see more far than the sidewalks, remove the video camera so they can destroy evidence, or they can avoid us to have evidence. So they don't want to spy on us. They don't want us to know what they're doing. They want to spy on us. During the perestroika in Russia, the police was not intervening nowhere. Up to a point, it was criminal gang who started to form milice, and honest citizen, they were relying on militia that were drug cartel, and those people had more moral sense. They said, we're controlling drug cartel. We do not disturb us. They were starting to protect ordinary and honest citizen in Russia in the 1990s. So look at what is happening now. The police is not intervening. I will just say a small anecdote. A couple of years ago, my land is divided by the street, and on the other side, 1 acre of land is near the river. So there's a lot of people who wants to go there. It's my property. One day I had an argument with somebody who went, and he started to threaten me. So I called the police. The Quebec police arrived, and I started to explain. He said, where they are. I said, they left. And I said, what do I do? I will protect myself. He said, you don't have the right to protect yourself. And I told him, I said, what do you mean I don't have the right if he threatens me? Well, he said, and this is a policeman who told me that. He said, if you hit him, just go in your kitchen, take a knife and put the knife in his hand before you call me. I said, well, are you serious? He said, no, it is a joke. But I was telling myself, why he's telling me this joke means that make sure that you can show or prove that he attacked you first, so you can use self-defense. Tim mentioned something, proportional
Proportional
reaction.
resistance.
How can you prove this? And if you don't have any camera, if you have nothing, you can say, and they can say, no, we disagree with you. The judge will say, you don't have any evidence. You imagine you have a video recording of somebody threatening you or threatening your relative in your house, and you hit back anything with a baseball bat, anything, a chair, and you hit the person, and you very badly, but you can prove that he threatened your life or the life of somebody. Now, by removing the camera, they're removing the possibility for a citizen to defend himself. And they're doing it slowly. They did it with the COVID mandate. They will do it with money. You go to retrieve $2,000-$3,000. Why do you want to retrieve $3,000? It's none of your business. So they're doing it, and it's a strategy. I will just read a small, it's 30 seconds. One of the characteristics of totalitarian system is to create confusion in people's mind, to make them anxious by constantly changing the rules, or to terrorize them psychologically in order to prevent them from regrouping or recognizing the tyrannical nature of the regime. Each citizen thus unconsciously becomes a weapon and a spy in the service of the tyrant. We have to avoid to spy on our neighbor. Do I put video camera because I don't trust my neighbor? No, I remember one of my neighbor, he doesn't have any video camera. I don't have any, but I saw one day somebody walking around, and they're not always there because it's their summer house. So I called them and I went to see there, and I said, wait a second, neighborhood watching.
Yeah.
If you don't have a video camera, what you'll do, you will reunite a group of men, and you will say, okay, we will patrol the night. Can they forbid us to patrol our own neighborhood, walking and checking around? They want to deprive us of the possibility to defend ourselves. The castle doctrine is it's an expression, but the castle, I think you mentioned it, payment. Your land is your castle. So you will defend yourself. It doesn't mean you aggress somebody, but those people, they don't have any Tim mentioned, noble intention at all.
This is something everyone knows, even like the biggest leftist brain dead, even the most left-wing individual knows instinctively castle doctrine is a real thing. And I'll show you how. You can beat the crap out of somebody in high school. You can kick them when they're down. When that kid runs into their home, you don't follow them into their home. This is something that everyone knows. Like you can beat somebody near to death, but if they run in their home, you do not follow them in. It's something that's in our DNA.
It was, but you know what they're doing now in primary school? They're teaching children not, somebody is harassing another child. What you do as a parent, you say to your child, wait a second, you should not harass another child at school. Now they're saying, no, we have to support this because it's discriminatory or racist to react like this. So wait, they're teaching this in primary school. They're teaching children not to react to being bullied because I was like, what is happening here? They're teaching this. All the protocol in primary school are made so children, if they are bullied, they have to accept to be bullied, especially white children.
So the bad news is this will infect an entire generation. The good news is it'll only be one generation.
You're right. But one generation is 20 years.
Right? It's human society demands justice.
Yes.
It will equalize itself. So if you have a generation of young children, preschool age children, elementary school age children that are coming up with this mindset, by the time they're in their 20s, if they have not fully bowed over into drones for the government and corporate whatever, then they will resist to the nth degree.
I think the new generation, you're right, Tim. I think the new generation will will react, and they will you know, do an insurrection. They will rise up, and they will say, "Wait, that's enough. That's enough." They will get up. I
We have
hope.
Professor Wolf is in the house. The main point of castle doctrine is to remove any onus of retreat from the dweller. Castle doctrine does not obviate any need for establishing a reasonable and justifiable perception of threat. However, proportionality holds. I don't know.
Proportionality holds, but if you step inside my front door with harmful intent, that front door is as far as you're getting. And proportion becomes a word my lawyer continues to remind me to use in front of the judge. That's it. That's it. I will absolutely lose my shit. Somebody comes into my home with harmful intent, and I don't give a flying F what anybody says or thinks or does about it. And the government thinks that they can tell me to bend over and open my ass. Wrong. Not happening. Not happening. It's just not happening. And if my country has come to a point in my generation where our police are literally counseling us to be bullied, to permit to be bullied, and they will not come and help us, well, I'm done giving any respect to the badge. I'm done.
You know the reaction. One day we will arrive at the tipping point, and people will start to take the law in their own hands. And this is the beginning of a civil war. This is the beginning of interior conflict. What they're doing now, especially the police, I think it was what was the police, York police or something like this. They advise people not to react at all. Those people, they are. It was not the Hamilton police. It was another one. I forgot. They are telling us, yes, exactly. They are telling us not to react at all, not to take the law in our own hand. The law is unlawful. That's
So they
it.
just don't
They're
like
saying,
paperwork. Is that what it is?
they're more. I think two things. They're ideologically aligned, brainwash. They do not react. Just a simple phrase. I'm just doing my work. I think you remember this food. I was just doing my work. I was
Yep.
just doing my job. As you're
Yep.
just doing your job, you're not doing your job, and
You're
you're
not doing your
advising
job.
people. You're
Yeah.
advising people not to react when they are aggressive. This is accomplice. We have this expression of accomplice in front of a court, in front of a judge. I would be surprised if there would be to charge them criminally, but because they control the judge, they control the justice, and we are stuck with a big monster that wants to continue to bully us. It's the government who's bullying us through those civil servant. Those people, they're complying. I think, Tim, you mentioned that. I think it was 2 weeks ago. You said people who are working as a civil servant, they're accomplice to a crime. They know
Yes,
it.
they
They
are.
can stand up. They could
Yes.
stand up. Some of them, whistleblower, they get up and they're fired after because they stand up to the system.
Yeah. And so all these memes we've seen over the years, the images of, where the one man is whipping and everybody's bowing, and then in the next frame, the one man is whipping and one man stands up and everybody else is bowing, and the next frame is the one man is whipping and everybody's standing up, and then the next
Stands up.
frame is the one man is no longer whipping, he's on his knees. That's bullshit. Bullshit. Because when the one man stands up, everybody stays down. And that's
Yes.
Canada. That's Canada. Because the moment one man stands up, he gets beat on by the whipper and no one defends him. The whistleblower stands up and no one comes to their defense. No one provides support. The one officer stands up and says, this is a bad thing. Because this happened in Ottawa during the convoy. There were officers who said, this is not right. And they suffered for it. And no one came to the defense. So the unions are not coming to the defense. Why? Because they've been bought, sold, they're blackmailed, they have their children's addresses, whatever dirty, foul things are going on, all the unions are corrupted this way. Most of our government layers are also corrupted this way, and those who aren't actually corruptible don't want to lose the paycheck. Right? The concept of noblesse oblige is gone. So the idea of a Remember what do we call it? The neighborhood watch, which is
Neighborhood watching.
an unarmed militia, right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Basically an unarmed militia. Well, that's going to change.
Well,
That's going to change.
when I talk about neighborhood watching, let's say you go with your car with you have 3, 4 men, a small neighborhood, and you say, we just patrol at night. We just drive. If the policeman stops you, you say, I'm patrolling in my neighborhood. You're not allowed to do this. I'm not allowed to drive in my car to check
Well, you
the
use
house
the
of
word
my neighbor.
patrol. That's the first mistake, right?
Well, let's say
I
you go on
forgot
a
where my
vacation.
house is. I went to get my buddies to go find it.
Okay, let's say you go on a vacation, you have a cat, you say, Andre, can you come in my house, feed my cat every day, water my plant,
Yeah.
check around? Of course, Tim, I will be happy. I'm your neighbor. I check, everything is okay. This is social behavior.
Yeah.
It's very important. They want to deprive us of social behavior.
Yes. Yes. And this actually feeds directly back into, we always talk about doing things locally, being involved locally,
Localism, yeah,
right? We
exactly.
always talk about localism. You refer to subsidiarity. So I want to take that down even to a neighborhood level. So the concept of a neighborhood watch without, the legal issues surrounding something like that, but even down to watching out for your neighbor,
Yes.
right? And not watching out so you can put on your red armband and rat them out, but watching them out because by providing another layer of horizontal support, you are actually improving the security of your neighborhood.
Yes, and you tell, for example, the government, you don't have to do it. We will do it.
Oh no, you can't
empowering.
tell them anything. We just have to do it
No,
on
I agree.
on the quiet.
I agree with you, but I'm not a fan of the word empowerment. But when you empower people, subsidiarity, and I can just talk about a little bit about social credit. I think they have this concept also of bringing the power to people, bringing it to people. That's why maybe it's difficult to understand. I just remember the concept of localism was very important to make sure that the decisions are made locally and then they can be enforced or implemented provincially or in a region or nationally, because people agree with this. It's not top down. I don't say it is not important to have top down, great decision, a statement, a leader, but also it has to come from the bottom. You always mention the grassroots movement, Tim.
Yeah.
I think it's very important. But now they're not doing it. Local police, do we see them?
No. The police is another issue. I want to share my thoughts. I think part of this is sinister. So there's this normalization of breaking and entering by abolishing castle doctrine, this removal of the citizens' ability to surveil the police by having a camera that might potentially record. I think that some of it is sinister, but it's just this. I call it the gravity well effect. Like government just gets bigger and it just wants more power. So as long as something makes the citizens smaller, that makes the government bigger, and they have an incentive to do that. This goddamn police commissioner, cop, whatever, the guy that I want to punch in the face for all eternity, like him coming out and saying that's basically a middle finger to the citizenry. That's, take power away from the citizen and just give it to the state.
He's saying, I'll take your paycheck, but don't do anything.
Yeah.
Well, all those civil servant, counselor in town hall, and we see it more and more. They're more and more arrogant. They don't even answer to the question of citizen. They're contempt. They have contempt, and they just implement things. And now it's starting to backlash. They're afraid now that we will have municipal election in about a month and a half in Quebec, in all the cities in Quebec. And people who are candidate, they don't want to be candidate, but now they're starting to be bullied on Facebook, on X, and people are extremely aggressive. Well, wait, they're not aggressive. You don't listen to them. You do what you want. You implement things that they don't want. And there was a woman, she's a sexologist in Quebec. She was banned by the Order of Sexology in Quebec. And she said, we will impose change. We will impose consensus with constraint. Wow, that surprises me. Consensus with constraint. This is the motto of the Bolshevik. We will
What does that
impose a
mean?
change. If you want consensus, you have to impose. You have to impose anything. You disagree with me, you have to comply. And then after
science
that,
is
I can say, you
settled.
see, payment agrees with me. Payment, no, it is not true at all. But they believe it. They
The
believe it.
science is settled.
Science is a religion today, and
No,
you're
the
right.
science is settled, right? That same phrase. The science is, there is no more discussion,
No more
right?
discussion.
We all
Exactly.
agree, and therefore, if you want to keep your head on your neck, you will also agree.
That's it.
Well, gentlemen, should we wrap up the show? We actually got through all three topics, and
We did.
it was a really good show. Like, it was jam packed.
I think we'll come back to the
Very,
social
very,
credit discussion more.
and it was very difficult, I admit, because some topics were difficult to describe. But
Well,
I would ask our viewer to be merciful toward us.
O King, be thou merciful to us, your so I was going to say subservient servants, but that's not true.
But there was a small video that I sent you both yesterday about Tim at the gym.
Tim at the gym?
You didn't see this?
Was it a
who goes there
JPEG? Did you send
I
it as
don't
a
think I caught
JPEG?
it.
No.
I don't think I
It's
caught
just-
it. No,
It's
and
a
and
small.
if,
It's a.
and I
No, it's
haven't
because
been-
it's a small clip. There's a woman who's doing yoga like this, and a man arrives with a bar, with on the
Oh, yeah,
backrest, and he
Yeah,
sees
yeah,
the
okay.
girl. He
No, we
sits,
can't talk
and
about that on
and I
public
said,
TV.
"This is Tim at the gym." He wants to be king of Canada. So
King of Cat. Yeah, but I'd end up being the one caught under the barbell.
Well,
he would do a good king. He would do a good king.
I would be a very good king. I would be a merciful king.
screw that. Go after the current government. Use your regal authority to just put them all in
Right?
jail.
Use my regal authority. I gotta finish being king of BC first. Yeah. So I gotta have a conversation with Jimmy Pattison to get the funding.
You're king of BC, or you're the governor of the China Communist Party in BC.
Well, if I was king of BC, I might actually convince Washington and Oregon to make Cascadia.
Oh.
There you go. Cascadia wouldn't be so bad. Be a lot of pot, a lot of homemade wine.
And on that note, let's end the show. It was going so well until the end. So well.
It's always the same
tanks at
thing.
the
We
end.
screw everything
I-
at the end all the time.
I find we suck at the beginning of the show, and then we suck at the end, and we pretty much suck all across in the middle as well.
Yeah.
And that's why we lose all our audience, because they leave after 5 minutes and they come at the end and
leave
said,
after
"You
5
see, it was good. It was good that I went away 1 hour and 30 minutes, and you see, we didn't lose our time."
You know what it is? Because we're all pundits and we play with words so much. Inevitably, it's I need this. I need to say this exactly the right word. Premature conjugation.
I will not add nothing.
I'll just add that as awkward as I am on this show with my closing statements, I'm just as awkward in real life. I don't when I'm trying to end the conversation in real life, it's just as bad.
Some shows are good. Some shows are better. Just keep
right.
coming back, and what one of the things we really like is the fourth wall, because injecting a lot of your comments on the side really adds a lot of flavor, right? So that's always very good. And so in our desire to be different from everybody else really hinges on your engagement, right? So we sit down the night before and we make a 3-point agenda, and we hope that it's useful, and then you guys sit in and move the agenda around, and we enjoy it.
If Mr. Douglas is your friend, colleague, we could always try to get him on the show, or I'd love to have him on my show. I'm guessing he could explain social credit.
I think get him on Andre's podcast to clean him and dress him first.
Well, we had a discussion, and last week I had the honor of introducing Michael Jones in French. And after that, before they said, "Do you want to talk about your podcast, Andre?" And I said, "I'm not a blogger. I'm a writer. But do you want to talk about your books?" "Well, I never publish nothing. Everything is in my computer." So, so I said, "I will stick to my role," meaning introducing Michael Jones. And because I met a lot of interesting people, I wanted to share this with you. Because we try to share our experience, Canadian experience. So
I did
future
that at
future is
the
good.
I did the same thing at the conference last weekend. I introduced or opened the panel between Maxime and John and Payman with a question for a discussion, and that took me 30 seconds. And I spent the next half hour sitting there on stage doing nothing. So yeah,
Now you know how it
I-
feels, Tim.
Well,
now I know how it feels.
it reminds me of election night in Canada. I remember him. I think it was. I don't remember. I think it was Matt Ehret and Derek Sloan and Tim after the show. He said, "For 30 minutes, I was just smiling."
It's
I
true.
was expecting reaction from
Yeah.
Tim the King. But it was good. It was a good show.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks to both of you. We did a good episode, and I'd like to thank the audience as well. Everybody enjoy your Saturday.
Yeah.
Thank you.